You haven't even left the house yet, and you've already imagined 3 ways the day could fall apart. The meeting goes wrong. The person you care about stops texting back. The small pain in your side turns into something serious. None of it has happened. But your body is already bracing. Your chest is already tight. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you're living through a disaster that doesn't exist yet, and may never exist at all. Most people would call this anxious, negative, irrational even. But the psychology behind it tells a very different story. Picture this. You're lying in bed the night before something important, a trip, an interview, a conversation you've been putting off. And instead of sleeping, your brain starts building scenes. Not hopeful ones, worst-case ones. You see the awkward silence. You feel the rejection before it happens. You rehearse the loss before anything is actually lost. And by the time morning comes, you're already emotionally exhausted. Not from what happened, but from what you convinced yourself could happen. From the outside, it looks like worry. From the inside, it feels like survival. And that's the part most people miss. This pattern isn't random nervousness. It's your brain running threat simulations. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as defensive pessimism, a strategy where the mind deliberately imagines the worst so it can prepare emotionally and practically. Your brain isn't torturing you. It's rehearsing. It's trying to make sure that if the bad thing does come, you won't be caught off guard. You won't be blindsided. You'll have already felt it once, so the second time won't destroy you. It's not weakness. It's a strange, exhausting form of emotional armor. But that's only part of it. There's a deeper layer underneath. People who build worst-case scenarios in their heads often have a very low tolerance for uncertainty. Not because they're fragile, but because their brain treats the unknown like an open wound. When something is uncertain, your mind doesn't just sit with the discomfort. It fills the gap. It writes a story, and the story it writes is almost always the darkest version, because your nervous system would rather prepare for pain than be surprised by it. You're not pessimistic. Your brain just refuses to leave a question unanswered, even if the answer it invents is the worst one possible. Here's where it gets even more interesting. This tendency is closely tied to pattern detection. Your mind is constantly scanning for signals, tone shifts in someone's voice, a pause that lasted too long, a detail that didn't quite fit. And when it picks up something ambiguous, it doesn't let it go. It pulls that thread. It runs it forward. It builds an entire future out of one uncertain moment. You're not making things up. You're reading between lines that most people don't even notice exist. The problem isn't your perception. It's that your brain won't stop processing once it starts. And this is the part that might surprise you. A lot of people who catastrophize aren't doing it because they expect the worst. They're doing it because they're trying to pre-feel the pain. It's a kind of emotional pre-processing. If you've already grieved the loss in your head, then the real loss won't hit as hard. If you've already felt the rejection before it arrives, the actual rejection becomes something you've survived once before, at least in your mind. It's not logical, but it is protective. Your brain learned, somewhere along the way, that surprise is more dangerous than sadness. So it chooses sadness early, on its own terms, just to stay in control. And that's the contradiction at the center of this pattern. You imagine worst-case scenarios not because you've given up on good outcomes, but because good outcomes feel too risky to trust. Hope feels exposed. Optimism feels like standing in an open field with no cover. So your mind pulls you back into the bunker of worst-case thinking, because at least there, you know what to expect. you look like a pessimist. But underneath that, you're someone who cares so deeply about what happens that your brain won't stop trying to protect you from it. But here's where honesty matters. This pattern, as intelligent as it is, can start to cost you. When your brain rehearses pain constantly, your body doesn't know the difference between what's imagined and what's real. Your nervous system responds to the invented disaster as if it's already happening. Your muscles tighten, your sleep suffers, your emotional energy drains before the actual event even begins. And over time, you can start avoiding things, not because they went wrong, but because your mind already showed you how they could. The simulation becomes the reason you never try. That's the line to watch. The moment preparation turns into paralysis, the armor becomes the cage. But knowing this, seeing the pattern clearly, is not a small thing. Because what you're really looking at is a mind that was built to protect, not to punish. A mind that cares too much to be casual. A mind that learned, probably very early, that the world doesn't always warn you before it changes. And so it made a system. A painful, brilliant, exhausting system to keep you one step ahead of whatever might come. You're not broken for doing this. You're running a very advanced operating system, one that just needs permission sometimes to stop scanning and rest. So tell me, when your brain builds those worst-case scenarios, does it feel more like worry or more like preparation? Leave your answer in the comments. And if this is something your mind does often, the next thing to understand is what happens when that same brain starts replaying conversations long after they've ended, and why it can't seem to let go.